Okay, so welcome everybody to Ha'i Mo'olelo, the second week of Hawaiian History Month. Ha'i Mo'olelo, telling, declaring, stating, confessing, stories, history, tradition, culture. There's so many nuances to Ha'i Mo'olelo, but they all have to do with performance, with being performative. So this week we're looking at Hawaiian theater, Hanakeaka, and Hawaiian literature. My name is Sammy Choi, and I've been directing Mai Poina, the Overthrow for the last 11 years. If you watched the documentary last week on our first week of the Hawaiian History Month, you saw remarkable footage about the 1993 marking of the 100 years since the Overthrow. Costumed actors reenacted some of the events surrounding that 1893 event. Victoria Nalani Newble, the writer of that landmark event, condensed and adapted her 3-day show into roughly an hour. Mai Poina, which means don't forget, is the result. As it plays out now, the audience arrives at the Iolani Palace grounds and walks in a group to stations representing 5 pivotal days in 1893. At each of these locations, they're greeted by 2 costumed actors who tell them of the events of the day from Native Hawaiian and Loyalist perspectives. And our webinar guests today are actors who have performed in that show. Now, presenting history in this kind of theater requires actors to speak in the first person, to be living in the period they're representing. In our production, 2 actors are assigned to each of the 5 stations. One of the actors is the interpreter, who introduces the day and its events. And the interpreter then is joined by a character who has a personal stake in those events and can speak to how everyday people have been affected. In Mai Poina, as the stations move closer to January 17, 1893, we hear about protests and the efforts of the Queen to counter the actions of the Committee for Public Safety. Now, in normal times, we would have opened Mai Poina last weekend, and we would have had more performances this coming Saturday and Sunday. But with COVID-19 preventing social gatherings, we decided to bring the actors to you. If you've seen the show, you've seen them performing in costume. But today we're presenting the actors, the people behind the characters and their perspectives on Mai Poina, the Overthrow. So our first 2 are performers of the station that takes place at the Coronation Bandstand near the Barracks building on the Iolani Palace grounds. And the 2 actors are Kiki Rivera and Craig House. Welcome, Kiki and Craig. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
So the 2 of you have actually been doing this show for several years. Craig, I think you've been there since the very first show. Let's start with Craig. Can you tell us how the show has evolved over the 11 years?
Yes, it really did get thrown together the first year, which was actually 12 years ago. Somebody had the idea for Onipa'a, it would be great to restage the 100th anniversary Onipa'a recreation of the Overthrow. So somebody went to Victoria Newble and asked her if she could maybe whip that up together, and she basically said, well, it's 19 hours long and it would require 400 actors, so I don't think we can sort of put it together for the weekend. So that's why she put together this hour epitome. So many of these speeches are actually removed from that original huge pageant. So she basically honed it down, and we basically put it together in a ragtag way. And what we realized after the first year was we needed a director, so that's why we got you, and you've been running it ever since.
Can you tell me something about your character?
Okay, as the token haole in the production, I perform a very important role, which is to point out that there actually were Caucasians in the kingdom who were totally opposed to annexation. My character, although very fond and sympathetic to the Queen and to the people of Hawaii, is more concerned about the fact that in the process of setting up the overthrow, the businessmen who put it together were also trying to make sure that they cut out any competition by anyone other than themselves and their friends. So they used the laws from the Bayonet Constitution on to basically shut out competition. So my character is actually a royalist in some ways because he believes there should be a kind of fair playing field for anybody who's living in Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you. And it has, yeah, your costumes have evolved too, as I recall.
My first costume, basically, actually, Euclid Aluli, who is part of the production, had not met me. And on the dress rehearsal day, we were wandering around, and until I started performing, she was concerned because she thought I was a homeless man following the cast around. I then got an upgrade. It went too far the other way. I ended up in a kind of three-piece formal suit, which was wrong as well. And then for the last 6 or 7 years, I've had sort of the right balance between working man and dressed up for a holiday.
Okay. So can we bring in Kiki now? Oh, are you there?
Yes. Oh, hi.
Aloha. Thank you for joining us from Long Beach, California.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So you perform with Craig. Your character is the interpreter. So can you tell us what kind of thing you tell the audience when you're on?
I'm the person that greets the audience. I remind them of what day it is. Monday, January 16th, 1893. That's my day. This is the script this is probably the only script I still know. And the only date in history, those 4 days. And I introduced them to my good friend, Alexis, played by Craig. And I just give the context, I guess, of what's happening. What happened earlier during the day, and then what's happening currently.
Mm-hmm. So getting more into the notion of performance, can you tell me something about your theater background? Because I know you've been working in theater for years.
Yeah, I've been working in theater for almost 20 years. I think I counted 17. And that's evolved over the years. I started as an actor. I directed just a little bit, and now I'm a playwright. And I tell people that I'm a theater artist because I feel like, all those little hats can be overwhelming and really separate our potential of what we can be as theater makers. So that it's evolved a lot. Right now I'm here working with a statue, and so creating a work that's a response to the Dilukai, the statues out of Palau. Oh, I saw that Craig had to leave.
Yeah, he had to go teach. So tell me something about performing outdoors, because Mai Poina is on the grounds. We're not in the palace. We're under trees, or you're at the bandstand. What are some of the challenges of performing outdoors?
Oh gosh, the sound. You're combating, you're competing with all kinds of street noise. It often takes place during the same time as the American Savings Bank big party, their annual party, and we're right next to them. And so there's always really loud music on that one day. And so you already have all this noise around, and so it makes us project even more, and so it can be really exhausting. But also, what I really love about this, and this is my favorite piece of theater to be a part of, Mai Poina, is so meaningful, and the fact that we get to be on the palace grounds, that makes it even more. It just grounds me as as a performer a lot more, and it makes things a lot more immediate. So when I say that the Marines are there, that they just landed and they're marching down the street, I see them marching down those same streets. And so it keeps history alive. And I feel like I'm living in these two worlds. That's the fascinating part of doing Mai Poina, because we're in a completely different world from what's happening around us. And so it's like having a foot in two worlds and two time periods. And it's like, it's like time travel.
Yeah, it is. So mahalo. I wish you were still here, but all the best to you as you work on your project in California.
Mahalo nui. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that's part of this. This is such an honor to be a part of.
So we're going to move on now to the second station that audiences come to, and that station is Charles Timtim and Lisa Katagieri Bright. Charlie actually is, I think, one of the only actors, no, he and Craig have been part of all three of the Mai Poina shows. We have Mai Poina, the Overthrow, the one that's the walking tour on the palace grounds. But we also have the annexation debate, which is about the protests against the annexation of Hawaii to the United States. And we have a play called The Trial of the Queen, which is about Liliʻuokalani being on trial for treason. And Charlie, I think you've been in all those shows.
Yes. Yes, I have.
There you are.
Blessed to be a part of all of those, definitely.
So tell me something about your acting background.
Well, my acting background, 20 plus years, doing various stage, TV, various movies, things like that. It's very blessed to be able to do what I love, and blessed to do things that have meaning, such as the annexation debates, Mai Poina, and the Trial of the Queen. You know, those things that really resonate. As an actor, very lucky to be able to do things that actually resonate with you and have meaning. Very lucky.
So the audience watches you, but you're also watching the audience. In this form of theater, there is no fourth wall. You are talking directly to them. So tell me what it's like watching the audience. What do you see?
So in the Mai Poina, I play part of a legislator, and I'm just come from a legislative session, and I've learned some information, and I'm sharing that actually with the people that have gathered. I get an amazing introduction by Miss Bright, my partner, and I get to come out and actually speak to them, and it's a very troubled time. I'm very twisted and very, very much I'm having a difficult time expressing what has been happening, and being able to actually, like Kiki was saying about being in the environment that we're at, also it's quite loud. There's buses driving by, but we also have to address a huge crowd of people, and being able to actually express and look them straight in the eye and tell them these things that have been happening. I tell them about the wrongs that are being done to the Queen, and how things are it's so apparent that these wrongs are being done, and being able to connect with them and actually look them straight in the eye and see that they actually get an understanding of it. It's pretty amazing to have that exact feedback. One of the best things about that though is that when I do come on, I actually come in from behind them so they don't know that I'm there. I actually walk around. I take a little walk maybe 100 yards around, just to walk around the grounds to come up. So I sneak up behind them so they don't know that I'm there. While Lisa is talking about the times of the day. But when I'm walking around, I actually bump into people that are just on the grounds, And they're like looking at me like, why are you dressed like that? And who are you? And what, are you going to arrest me or something? It's quite interesting. And then I get to actually tell them what's going on. And then they would actually just jump in, and you'd see they'd have no idea about the history about what was going on and of that place. And I think that was definitely a benefit of being able to do those things live with that audience there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. This the people that were walking around and what's going on? Why are there so many people here? And asking questions and being able to answer them and say, you know, this is what happened, and why don't you just follow along? I mean, you did have certain amount of people that were supposed to be there, but you could always just let people jump in whenever that happened. So that was amazing when I got to do that.
So tell me how you were dressed.
I had a top hat, coat, very much layered. It was very cool. Yeah, I felt very cool, but sweating cool.
Yeah, yeah. The men are mostly, well, several of the men are in frock coats,
Mm-hmm.
which are made of wool. So they're out in the end of August, beginning of September, under the sun, in wool frock coats. So, yeah, one of the challenges of performing outside.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, thank you, Charlie. Thank you for coming today. And thank you for sharing your talent and your time with Mai Poina.
No, it's definitely a blessing. Thank you.
Mahalo. So we're going to move on to another character who is not Hawaiian. As Craig said, one of the takeaways from Mai Poina is that there were many people in the nation who were not Caucasian, but who still supported the Queen. So at the fifth station, we have, it takes place on the front steps of the palace. And a woman is standing on the front steps and she's explaining what's happening today, and that's January 17th. And, well, let's bring in Shiro Kawai.
Hi.
Shiro, can you, excuse me, can you tell me how you enter the scene?
Oh, you want me to reveal it?
Yeah.
The audience gathering around the interpreter in front of the staircase of the front staircase of the Giovanni Palace, and she's explaining what's happening in the last most important days, January 17th. Basically, there's a very huge conflict is about to happen in the city, and just after she said that the American consulate authorizes the provisional government, I came in behind the audience with a big machete and "Where's the Queen?" And I really love that the people just jumped by surprise. So my role is a Japanese immigrant laborer in plantation, and I just come down to Honolulu and to support Queen. We've heard that the rumor that there's a huge conflict is about to happen in Honolulu and the Queen is in danger. And the laborers support Queen because they are exploited by the plantation, rich plantation owners. And the Hawaiian government actually moved ahead to protect them. So they are thankful for the Queen, and they are really afraid that if whites seize the government, then everything goes back to the days when they're really harsh to the laborers. So they come in with a machete, and they are ready to fight, but that's too late.
Thank you. Yeah. Shiro just hangs out under a palm tree.
Yeah.
For most of the show, and he times it so that he is actually shouting behind the crowd, holding his cane knife in the air. the first time this happened, or maybe it was a rehearsal, Shiro, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think a rehearsal.
This is on me, I had neglected to tell security on, on the grounds that this was going to happen, that we were going to have a man waving a cane knife and shouting. This was not received well. So, yeah, so one of the things I do every year now is call security and say, oh, hey, remember, we're gonna have the Japanese man yelling with the cane knife. And they say, oh yeah, we know, thank you. So, yeah, yeah, I can learn too. So Shiro, you have an interesting background. You've been acting in Hawaii theater for, what was it, 15 years now?
Yeah, more than that, like 2005, yeah, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started acting, I was born and grew up in Tokyo, and I started acting when I was a student. I joined the student theater company, and back in 90s, there's a huge boom of small theaters in Tokyo. So I did a lot of theater here. But my other passion is computer software engineering. So I got a degree of that and came to US to work as a programmer. And I found out that Hawaii has very rich theater community, I found out. And especially the Kumukafa Theater in downtown, it's a small theater, just like the small theater I did back in Tokyo. Very intimate settings, 100 seats. So I started taking classes and auditioning for them. And that's how I resumed my acting career.
Thank you. Yes, I remember working with you and with Lala Buzzle, who's watching today. Now that was a good show. Thank you. Excuse me. So mahalo, Shiro. We're going to move on to Lisa Ann Katagiri Bright. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, aloha.
Aloha. So you worked with Charlie on that particular station. I know you've worked at Kumukuhua Theater as well. Can you tell me something about your theater background?
I've been doing theater maybe about 10 years now. I was introduced to the theater by friends earlier, but I didn't start actually acting until I was working on a play as part of the crew at Kumukuhua Theater. And then I was asked, hey, why don't you try it? And so I did, and I just loved it. I fell in love. I got the acting bug. And Kumukuhua Theater in particular, I really still today love acting in plays there, because their mission is to produce plays that are written by local playwrights and to tell local stories. And that is the one thing that I just love about it, is that we're able to tell our own stories, right? Stories about us, which is really important, not only for our community, but for people who are visiting, right? Is to be able to tell them our stories from our perspective.
What are some of the plays you've appeared in?
Oh my goodness. Some of the actors here have been in those plays too, actually. So like, my very first play was Maui the Demigod. I think Charlie had done a rendition of that particular play, the original, right? Also, Cane Fields Burning with Shiro. Let's see, with John Watt. Oh my gosh. Ghost of the Plague Year. All of those wonderful plays. Also plays like Uncle's Garage. Oh, Charlie in that one too. And Zan. Hi, Zan. In Uncle's Garage and Flowers of Hawaii. I mean, yeah, the list goes on. I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate and blessed that the list goes on. A lot of fun.
So you're an educator.
Yes.
You work at KCC. Tell me about the educational aspect of Mai Poina, because that's a big part of the Hawaii Pono'i Coalition's mission.
Right. So I actually encourage my students to come, right? Extra credit. Okay. But when they come for the extra credit, right? At first. But when they do come, they're amazed. First of all, they see Kumu doing something else, which is very strange, I think, for them. But they'll come back to me, or they'll write papers, right? I ask them to write a reflection on it. And they're just amazed at all the things that they've learned that they didn't know about. You know, even students who are born and raised here, you know, things that they didn't even know about. And I can attest to that too. Until I was participating in this play, acting in this play, I really didn't know all the nuances of the things that went on during those days until we had our dress rehearsal and we went through the entire, you know, every station. And it was amazing to me. For example, Craig's character, I had no idea the Greeks were even here, let alone trying to start businesses. No clue whatsoever. And so I think that the educational value, I mean, it's incomparable, especially since we're on palace grounds, right? And like how Kiki was saying, you know, 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the past. And it's so true, and it's wonderful being an actor. And I think even being a guest, being on the palace grounds where these things actually happen. And the way Vicky has written it, where we show the audience the different places and the different things that are on the grounds, and give a little history lesson, right, about the different buildings and whatnot. I have people who still come back, students and friends come back every year, and they're learning something new every year.
That's true. That's true. We do have returnees every year. And you as the actors can look out and that's a familiar face. And yeah. Okay, mahalo, Lisa.
Mahalo.
So we're going to move on to Moanililia Miller. Hi, Moani.
Aloha.
Aloha. So you're in the very, very first station. The audience gets their intro off the grounds in front of the library, and then they come and you're the first one they meet. Tell me about the audience. What do you see?
Well, I think what's really exciting about being in the first station, well, first of all, it's a lot of setting the ground for everything that's to come. So it's a lot of history, a lot of facts, a lot of dates, and it can be very heavy in information and less in storytelling. But what is kind of exciting about that is that in being able to relay that to people, you kind of help take them from, you know, oh, I'm here to see a play, to actually being in the play. So I love being able to see that transformation happen when they first start walking up to me, and everybody's kind of weird and awkward because they don't, you know, it's the first time they're having to be outdoors, and there's this woman who's standing in front of a tree in this very long old school dress. But as I begin talking about it, then I can see their faces like coming to terms with what they're about to see. And it's for me, that's just, I love being in that place.
That's right. You're the bridge from the 21st century to 1893.
Yes.
Yeah. Plus you have the most dates of anyone in the show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. A lot of exposition.
Yes.
You are a performer in more ways than one. Can you tell me about that background?
I've danced hula. I've performed hula. In terms of theater, I'd call myself like a dabbler because I've been in and out of community theater for the past decade. And in fact, the very first show I've ever done was Vicky Nubel's The Conversion of Ka'ahumanu, also at Kumukuhua Theater, which I think we all very much love and appreciate that place. So that was what I initially got started in over a decade ago. And I've danced hula and done theater, even though I would say Mai Poina is probably the one consistent theater thing I have in my life. So I'm very grateful that you guys let me back every year when I have the opportunity to do so.
When you're in town.
When I'm in town, yeah.
So you're in Maryland right now.
Yes.
Sometimes when we're away from Hawaii, our perspective changes. So in terms of the last couple years events, protests on the Mauna, the different movements. What's your perspective from being an observer now from outside? So we have this play, we have other Hawaiian, we have Haleopua Baker's shows at UH in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, you just hit me with the heavy one, huh, Sammie? Put me out there. No. No, I mean, that's a really great question. If I can really quickly speak to that, though, what was really interesting last year is because like the protests on the Mauna were happening and the energy was just so fresh and so alive with everything that was going on. That was a very powerful time to be sharing this kind of story, because people are showing up with their Mauna Kea shirts and they're coming with that energy of like, we want to learn, we want to know what's going on, we're here to be informed. And those were the people in the audience who were so easy to connect to, because you could feel their energy just like coming at you. And more often than not, and John can attest to this, I would like break character because I would just start crying, because the role that I play as the interpreter talks a lot about the gravity of the situation, but she also tries to bring a little bit of hope. You know, the queen is going to right this wrong. She's going to give us what we all want. And as I'm speaking those words, I mean, I'm feeling it even now, like my heart breaks because I know what happens. And that was so immense. So I think in response to your question, I kind of feel like I always feel that sort of heartbreak all the time as I'm watching everything happening, no matter what. And maybe that's just part of being connected to Hawaii, having that koko in me. There's a sort of a perpetual heartbreak that happens.
Yeah, that's one of the tricky things about being in this show, that if you're an early day, like as you are, your character doesn't know what happens next.
Yeah.
Because you're living in that day. But then you have you, Moani,
yes,
knowing in your heart what happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think for me, what's been really wonderful to watch is how all the actors are able to ground themselves in their day. And because they do that without foreshadowing, well, there is textual foreshadowing, but without being all glum and, oh my God, this is going to end badly, without communicating that to the audience, you can carry them along with you.
Yeah.
So they're caught up in the tension and the energy of the moment and the hope of the moment,
Yeah.
so that when they finally come to January 17th,
Yeah.
the crowd's energy just is palpable. You can feel them absorbing the impact. Whereas if they knew, okay, yeah, it's going to be the overthrow, it's going to be terrible day, it wouldn't have that impact.
Yeah.
Because all of you are able to live in your days. Yeah, magic theater, right? Connecting with the audience. Mahalo, Moani.
Mahalo, Sammie.
We're going to move on to your partner, John Watt. Mr. Watt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you have a very long history in Hawaii theater.
Yeah. Well, I'm primarily a director, but I do act. And I've been, I guess, working in theater in Hawaii probably 30 something years. It's kind of scary to think about that now. And I do a lot of my work at Kumukuhua. And for many years, I was also a theater teacher at Mid-Pacific Institute. And for me, this was really a fantastic project. One of the things I have to say is that I've also directed the world premiere of a couple of Victoria Nubel's plays. One that you have also directed, right, Sammie?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been always excited about her work. And this particular part, I think I'm one of 4 different actors who have, or 3 different actors who have played this part, but I feel like really, really connected to this part, partly because I think out of all the 3 of us, I'm I have the most Chinese in me, and it's a very Chinese character.
True.
And when I first read the part, I thought, man, this could have been written for me. Like, I have this personal connection to it. The character I play is a Chinese businessman who is really kind of incensed at what's happened, and the fact that, you know, he is a loyal citizen of the kingdom, and his rights have been taken away as a loyal citizen of the kingdom. Not only that the queen is in some kind of trouble, but also that, you know, a whole class of his fellow people are also being disenfranchised. And my own personal connection is that, you know, my parts of my Chinese family have been here since 1860. So I'm you know, I thought about this and I went, you know, this could have been my great-grandfather or my great-great-grandfather saying these things, and they were shopkeepers as well. So very, very strong personal connection to it. And then I also remember too, in '93, when Vicky's big project, the 3-day thing, I was at that on the first day, you know, with thousands of Hawaiian people, and I thought, oh, should I be here? I'm not Hawaiian, I'm Chinese. And then I stayed away the second couple of days. And then when this project came up, I realized that if I had to do it again, if I was back there in '93, I would have gone to every day, because it wasn't only Hawaiian people who were affected by this. I mean, there's so many more people who were here, who were, you know, members of the nation state as it was at that time. And so a very, very strong connection to it. And the other thing I wanted to think about was, as a kind of director, I was thinking, you know, you talked about the stations having two people, and one being an interpreter or narrator and one being a character. But for me, at every station, the person who's the narrator, we kind of think of them as being, you know, someone who's objective and full of facts and just setting the scene for us. But all of them were very, very connected as well. And you could see that they had personal connections and reasons to tell this story, to recount this history. And so that was, and like Moani, you know, I mean, and every one of the, I think, 4 actors that I've worked with in this particular part, you could see their connection to it. And as much as they held to the period, you could see that they also had, you know, a feeling for the time and the period and what was happening at the time. So those things were very, very exciting for me to work on.
That was a deliberate choice, but it's also supported by Vicky's words.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally supported by how Vicky has written the interpreter roles.
Mm-hmm.
They're not neutral.
Yeah.
They're not neutral at all. And but that is in tune with what the Hawaii Punui Coalition was formed to do, to present the point of view of Native Hawaiians unashamedly.
Yeah. Because
the history's been written by the victors, by the conquerors, by the colonialists. And so these plays are in the voice of the Hawaiian people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I just find that there's so much energy in them. Yes, like Moani is giving the history of the Hawaiian kingdom in 2 minutes. All those great names come spewing out, but you can tell that she's a partisan. You can tell where her passion is. Yeah. She's not just instructing. It's not just a teacher giving facts, giving history. Mm-hmm. This is her history. And yeah, so your character, the Chinese merchant, I think this is one of the few bits of comic relief
yeah.
in the show, because of how angry you get and how Moani has to calm you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of fun. I like a lot of the stations. I'm an actor who starts off behind the audience and then joins in the conversation. I listen to her, and when I no longer can just listen, and I must say my piece, I get carried away. And it's interesting too that Vicky has written this, that the first thing I do is, you know, I take the howlies in the audience to task, and I say, oh, I remember those, and then I catch myself and go, wait, it's not all of you. some particular haoles who are responsible for this. And
So,
I had a couple,
yeah.
go ahead. I had a couple interesting experiences. Like at Iolani Palace, it's usually easy to find one or two, at least, people who are, you know, blonde or obviously either not from here or, you know, local haole. Although you have to be careful because, you know, everybody's mixed nowadays, so it's kind of tough. But most of the mixed people will play along with the game even. And then we went on tour one time to Maui, and we were at Kamehameha on the Maui campus, and I looked out at the audience of, you know, 200 dark-haired kids, and I went, oh man, who am I going to pick on here? And I ended up, you know, pointing to the tech lady who was running our tech for us, who was the only blonde in the whole room. So that's interesting. And it's kind of fun to really get into the character and then have Moani pull me back and say, oh, uncle, thank you. And I realized that I have gone off the deep end, and the audience really enjoys that. They listen very carefully, but they also feel how impassioned that character is, and they enjoy it, I think, a lot. And sometimes people come and talk to you afterwards, and they talk to you while you're in character. So that's really kind of fun. I have one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, I've forgotten. If it comes up now, I'll talk about it.
Mahalo, John.
Thank you.
So I want to move on to the character, an actor who has played the Queen. So if we could move to Leʻaleʻa, Kahalepuna-Wong.
Aloha.
Hi, there you are.
Hi.
So you played Liliuokalani a couple of years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that each of the women who has played the Queen over the past years has found different challenges. What were some of the challenges for you?
Well, for me, the first one that comes to mind is probably, it was my first time working outside. I'd never done a production in broad daylight in front of you, where you see the audience and everything. So that was a little jarring for me. And then being able to actually try and focus on everybody, just because of the way the Queen is written beautifully by Victoria Nalamino. She addresses her people, and it took a lot of, I don't know the right word. It took a lot of digging down deep into what I know as an actor, and how to, be able to just not freak out, I guess, and to look at the audience in the eye and talk to them and speak in earnest. That's the physicality part. It's all of that. Internally, as portraying the Queen, portraying the Queen is not easy, period. It's having to try and find bits and pieces of this beautiful historical figure, this woman who meant so much to us, and try to find something that I could hold on to, something I could cling to, that would help me embody her, because I'm no doubt she's this beautiful, warm presence to her people, and the symbol that she is. It's hard to kind of try and portray that in a way, because I'm not royal. I don't know how to, I don't have the proper etiquettes and things like that to, portray a queen. But just taking those small things that I see and that I've read about her, and trying to just take that all in, and to be honest in the portrayal.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked a little bit about character development here, how you build up to playing the Queen. Can you tell me how you learned all that? What's your acting background, your performing background?
Well, I've been performing Actually, this year makes 20 years. I've been acting. I started when I was 13 and just kept going because like Lisa had said earlier, she got the acting bug. I got the acting bug. And I just went forward. I've done a lot of musical theater first. And then I wanted to explore more of the acting side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I came across Kumukahua Theater. And that's kind of become my home now as an actor. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with these stories that I was telling and fell in love with how I felt as an actor. And I've actually seen myself develop. And I'm more of a, I never went to college or anything like that. I didn't go to school for theater. I just watch people. Anytime I see an actor and I love what they do, we're actors, so we steal from each other, right? So I've stolen from people that I admire, people that I love, people that inspire me to be better. And that's my learning when it comes to acting.
Yeah, we do steal. Unabashedly, right.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
That's the old school way that actors used to learn. You got on stage with more experienced actors and you learn from doing it, which is how you do it. But you're a singer too.
Yeah, I'm a singer. I begrudgingly say I'm a singer. I don't think I'm as good as other people. But yeah, I do love to sing though. And that one, I do miss it sometimes because people have asked me, like, when are you going to go back to musical theater? I'm like, I don't know. Someday, when I'm ready. Or when they're ready for me, then okay, we'll do it.
So, I know you participated in other kinds of Hawaiian theater. Can you tell me about that?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I just finished Victoria Nalami Noble's conversion of Kaahumanu at Kumukahua. We were supposed to do the show back in March, but unfortunately for COVID, it didn't happen. However, our fearless director, Mr. Harry Wong III, had asked, would it be possible for us to keep it up? So we did. We would meet, once a week to go over lines, and I think that was the longest time I've ever had to hold a script in my head. And we did it, and we had to do it virtually, of course, but it was so beautiful, and I had to play another queen, and that was intimidating in itself. But the words that Victoria writes it was beautiful, it was touching, and it was heartbreaking at the same time. I've also done shows with the wonderful Moses Goods, who has his own theater company, Inamona Theater Company, and he's been kind enough and brave enough to allow me to join him on his productions. So I've done shows with him both here at HTY, and I've also done shows with him on Maui, and we even went to Washington, D.C. to perform. And it's wonderful to meet people after the shows, and they come up and said, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that story. I know nothing virtually about Hawaiian history. So it was lovely to just speak with those, most who've never been here, and just to share a part of our culture with them. That's always touching for me personally.
Mahalo for your mana'o.
Mahalo, Sammie. Mahalo, nui.
Mahalo to all the actors for giving us your time. And those of you watching, I hope you'll have the opportunity to see Mai Poina, the Overthrow, perhaps next year. We'll see. In the meantime, though, as Malia said in the beginning, there is a viewer's guide that we used to hand out to every single audience member. It's on the website. Let's see, it's hawaiipunoi.info. Yeah, so you can read that free. Has articles by Native Hawaiian scholars. It's actually a really fascinating read. There are 2 more Ha'imo'olelo events this week. On Friday at 6 p.m., Nyla Fuji'i-Bab, who played the Mai Poina Queen for years, she'll be live reading Victoria Nalani Newble's short story, Ho'oulu a futuristic story about the resurgence and successes of the Lahui in the future and the personal costs paid by some citizens of the nation. On Saturday at 4 p.m., Dr. Pua Warren will host a webinar with Hawaiian playwrights Victoria Nalani Newble and Dr. Haile Okua Baker. Join us for more ways to Ha'imo'olelo. Mahalo and ahui ho.
Mahalo nui, Sammy. You know, before we end, I do see one question in our our Zoom chat, you know, and I just again want to say thank you to all of our friends that did join us here on this Zoom webinar. And, you know, we weren't successful in getting this up on our Facebook pages. However, we are recording it and we will be uploading it to all of our partner pages. So we will be able to share it with the larger audience. But the question I see is from Conrad. He said, is there a way to read the script of the play or even the full version?
The full version means the 3-day event. Wow, that, have I seen that? I remember seeing that script, but I don't remember where I saw it. Yeah. Sorry, I really don't know. I don't know. Terrible answer. Yeah.
No, it's okay. But so is the script itself though, is that available somewhere?
Not right now, but it could be in the future. Yeah.
Okay, and then I see another really great question here. What would you like the audience to walk away with after viewing the live version?
My perspective is as the director. I'm speaking as a director. What I would like the audience to walk away with is a deeper understanding of the history, because the details that Vicky brings out aren't taught in the history books. The history books, while some of them are really well intended, they do gloss over a lot of stuff. Particularly on the last day, the January 17th station, there were missives and letters and notes and proclamations going back and forth between the Queen, the consul, the Committee for Public Safety, and I hadn't known about that. I hadn't known about all those efforts happening on that day, and it's dizzying to realize that. So I think audiences walk away kind of stuffed with information. So what we do at the end of each show is we have a scholar waiting to take questions and to talk. And if people have a question about what they've just learned, they can ask the scholar. If they just want to vent, that's a forum for that too. But if other actors, if you want to jump in, what do you think an audience should walk away with?
Well, Sammie, I now remembered what I wanted to talk about before, which is most of our audiences are really highly sympathetic and they're interested in the history, and that's why they're there. But then we do get people who are just tourists or walking by. And then one year if you remember, we did that little bit for the Hawaii Tourism Authority, where we went down to the convention center and we had 500 of these tourist people, a lot of them from the mainland, and a lot of them had never heard any of this history. And, you know, they had come with an idea of what tourism in Hawaii was about. And, you know, this stuff flew in their faces. And some of them were, you know, angry about it. And some of them were really wanting to know much, much more and to think about how they could introduce their own audiences because they were so excited about the work as well. And so part of that, I think, is, you know, it's a way to start the conversation about the history of this place. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting people talking to each other. Right. Yeah, Shiro.
Yeah, jumping. What I love in this Mai Poina thing is that it gives the audience the personal touch to the history. Usually the history, we see it hindsight as an objective fact. So yeah, we analyze by objectively, and we judge it. But the people actually live in that day. It's unfolding all those events, not knowing the future. But that feeling that you are in there is really fascinating. And I'd like to think that even now we are living in the history, unfolding all those events in the world. It's like a parallel.
Yeah.
So I myself acting it out in that day feels that connection and be living in the history right now. And I'd like the audience to feel that too.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've had thousands of people see this show since 2009. And everybody has their own take after seeing it. And I think that's wonderful to have a personal reaction. All we can do is share the information as honestly and truthfully as we can. That's what theater's for, right? Yeah. To be truthful.
So maybe as a last question I'm seeing here, Stacy is saying, as actors, humans who portray and process emotions on a stage, what would you recommend to the people who feel so overwhelmed and helpless by that anger or that pain that they're feeling?
Leʻaleʻa?
Okay, quick story in regards to that. My very, very, very first run of the show, when we had an audience, people are coming in, and I'm at station 3. I'm at the back of the palace on the stairs, and the people are coming, and I'm in the back, and I come in from behind the audience, and people are all like, "Oh my gosh, it's the Queen!" So I get on the stairs, and I start delivering my lines. Suddenly, as I'm doing my lines, I get so overwhelmed with my words, and it gets to me, and I literally stop what I'm doing, and I'm trying to process what's happening in my head, because I'm, as the Queen, I'm trying to be, touching and all, just not distressed, but sorry. It just reminded me of this story. So, but as myself, as Leʻaleʻa, I was so angry, and because knowing what was going to happen in the next day, because my day was January 15th, the day before the overthrow. Knowing what's going to happen in my mind, history-wise, I completely broke character, and I had a moment where I was like, what's going to happen? Luckily, my partner, Kimo, Lisa's husband, the wonderful man that he is, grabbed me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yep, just give me a second." And then I continued, thankfully, with his support and everybody else around me. My perspective is this: when audience members are watching this show and they feel all these emotions, as I did, I think take it, remember it, know that this is truth, that this is not just a story of the past, but our own story. And make it, you know, make it to where you can share it with other people, and share your feelings about it, and as a way to let go of that pain, and speak your truth, speak how you feel and how the history makes you feel to others, because in a way you're not just letting go of your emotions, but you're sharing our history's truth. And I think that's what people need to take away from it, is that this isn't just some story. This is our people, this is our life, this is our heritage, this is our culture.
So Leʻaleʻa, what you said about sharing, I think don't keep it inside.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't keep it
Do not
inside.
keep it in.
So Moani, you have a comment?
Oh, you're muted.
Muted. Okay.
Sorry, Kalamai. That was very beautiful. That was very beautiful, Leʻaleʻa. And I just wanted to kind of add to that. I do think the point of us telling the story is to bring up those feelings and emotions in other people. It's so that they can experience that anger, that pain, and that just the intensity of what really, really happened. And, you know, processing through our emotions is a very individual and unique and special process for everybody. But I think the point of it coming up is then to just not forget. It's like, it came up, don't let it be something that goes away. Let it be something that moves you into the next step of wherever that emotion takes you. And I think as actors, that's what's beautiful about being able to drop our emotions, draw that out of other people. And then, like you said, Sammie, then it creates conversation, and then it creates the next movement of wherever emotions take you.
Mm-hmm. Charlie.
Those are amazing, very, very, very amazing, right on point. And I think as artists and as humans, what it is that we want to share that experience. We want to be able to relate with each other, and being whatever it being, acting, writing, singing, however you express that, it's the shared experience. So when we're able to do that and know that other people are there that understand what we're trying to say, or what we're feeling, or either the pain or the joy or whatever it is that it is, I think that's what the human experience is that we're trying to put across. And I think that's how we deal with it as human beings, especially through art. I mean, being a drawing, whatever it be. And that's just that shared experience that you want to tell your story and know that you're heard and that someone is listening.
Lisa.
To build upon Charles's comment, yes, it is a shared experience. And when we do share these experiences, we're actually building relationships, right? That's how we build community. That's how we build relationships with other people. And through these shared experiences, they're becoming part of our own identities, right? And so these stories change us. Right? It might make you think about things, but just as a person, as part of your identity, it changes you as a person. And you go on throughout your life as part of that identity is it kind of oozes out into everything that you do. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a part of you.
Mahalo. Yeah, this has been great, you know. What a way to really kick off week 2 of Hawaiian History Month, because hanakeaka and, you know, theater in all these different forms of our media really, I think, documents our history in these very creative ways. And I really appreciate the work of all of you. I shared with Sammie at one time that I did have a little bit of hanakeaka experience in the Kalu'e Ko'olau story that Hailey Baker did. And that was like my one time on stage. And I just tried to do it as I said, I'm trying out to be a hula dancer because I know I can do that. And she's like, no, I think you're going to be the lead actress and you're going to be the wife. I'm like, oh. Well, I retired quickly after that. But I know it takes a lot. And so I really mahalo all of you. I mean, from the writers to the actors, the actresses. I mean, so many roles. And I wanted to, you know, Sammie, as a way to just wrap it up, what would you say to our young ones out there that are interested in any one of these roles that, you know, whether it's the creating of the props or the costuming? I mean, there's so many different fields that our young ones could really get involved with. What would you say to them? How do they get involved?
In Hawaii, we're blessed with so much community theater. A number of our actors have talked about kumu kahua theater. There are opportunities to volunteer in so many different fields. I would say do that. There are classes you can take. I think our educational system is cutting back on the arts, unfortunately, but do all you can. Do all you can. I teach theater. I'm at KCC with Lisa. And when you see the young ones coming up, or even people who don't want to be actors, but they're trying, they're curious. And you see them kind of flowering as they try different things, as they push themselves. Go push yourself, challenge yourself. Never stop challenging yourself. That's what I think.
Awesome. So again, I'll bring up some of our slides. Mahalo again to all of you for joining us today, to our team here, our amazing panelists. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. Thank you, Sammie, for kicking us off with this great mo'olelo to share with everyone. Again, we welcome everyone back on September 11th. With Ho'oululahui, a short story by Victoria Nalani Nubo, and it's gonna be done live. The reading will be done live with, remind me, Nyla
Fuji'i-Bab. She's a master storyteller.
Ooh, I'm excited to tune into that. And you know what? We're gonna get all those Facebook posting and all of that worked out by then. We're gonna definitely work on that. So join us again on September 11th. Mahalo nui as well to all of our partners, and I will go through and read all of their names here. We partnering Hawaii Pano'i Coalition, partners with Kamehameha Schools, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, the Friends of Iolani Palace, Kanayo Kana, Oiwi TV, the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Lili'uokalani Trust, Namea Hawaii, Pu'uhonua Society, the UH Manoa Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge, UH Manoa John A. Burns School of Medicine, Department of Native Hawaiian Health, Papa Ola Lokahi, Hawaii Youth Opera Chorus, Kahuli Leʻaleʻa, Pam Omidyar, and the Noah Webster Aluli Foundation. And again, mahalo to everyone, and please continue to follow us on our social media pages. And our website is always being updated with more resources, hawaiianhistorymonth.org. Aloha everyone, and ahui ho.
Ahui ho.